That went well. You're on mute.
Yeah, yes, yeah. People really pushing and thinking. I was trying to give the group two, the that group that you talked about, the early childhood association. Yeah,
You see, I'm pushing my agenda of early childhood ed,
I
right?
see that. I see that. I see. There was a district that was
Coming
trying to
in hot.
pilot that universal pre-K. I forget. They were not necessarily fully piloting, but they were trying to like see what were the benefits if they didn't go behind, the usual structures of like you make a certain amount of money, you get access to it. They were trying to pilot it in a way where like if we just kind of made it more broad and allow people to have access to it, like what impact would that have? I don't know what was the outcome of that because it was like right before COVID. Like it was last academic year, but I'm assuming COVID may have put a damper on the effort.
Well, Alabama is doing it. Alabama has universal high quality pre-K and they're outperforming us. Alabama.
Well, I'm not surprised. Tennessee is the 41st in the state when it comes to funding. So we have work to do.
And then also I think Denver's doing it too. Their kids are doing great. Yeah.
My little one was fortunate enough to be able to do the pre-K program in Franklin Special School District. And I am so thankful because with COVID, she missed out on half of kindergarten and all of first grade, and she would be so far behind.
Mm-hmm.
It's, so I came from the world of, I came from elementary and then I dipped into early ed. So if you ever want to chat early ed, it's my jam. But yeah, like it's abysmal.
Mm-hmm.
Abysmal. So I'm going to share my screen. And do we have a group that wants to go first?
One.
Y'all want to go first? All right, group one. Tell us
do
what
it,
you got.
Jonathan.
So their prompt was they're working on mandating an anti-racism policy in their district, and will include anti-bias training for all teachers. So what you got?
Yeah, so we're just gonna move from public to civic to private. Starting with the public, we listed the school board, mayor's department, the Department of Education, Board of Regents, Metro Council, because we were focused in on Nashville, legislative councils, and then we thought institutions of higher education would be interesting to put in here. So colleges and things like that feed into it because you can get the policies created there that they can teach the teachers and then the teachers go into the schools. Moving through to the civic side, this is where we get the on the ground with the schools, the NAACP, Urban League, local churches, community members. An important point that was brought up was the MPHC or Divine Nines, because that's a huge network of connections just waiting to be used that aren't utilized in enough manner. And then teachers unions, because those are also a great advocate that's advocating on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
Then lastly, moving to the private and kind of looking at how to move the money in this sense. Black caucuses, minority-owned businesses, because of course they want to put their names behind something so powerful as this. Curriculum creators, for lack of a better word. So whatever curriculum would be used to work on this anti-racism policy would have to have a stake in it because they're ultimately going to be the ones buying for the bid. We listed big corporations like Amazon, Coca-Cola, Google, Ingram, because they, especially now with the climate of culture, it would make sense and it would kind of be just like a no-brainer for them to get involved behind this. Else, the way you paint it, the way you create tension and pressure, they could be put as the bad guys and no one wants to be that. Mm-hmm. And then lastly, a great point brought up was the financial institutions such as banks, because that's just a great source of funding. And we tried to think of ones in Nashville, but we just kind of ran out of time. So those are just kind of where we're going from public to civic to private, and my group can like add in any of the things that I missed.
Great job, John.
Yeah, great job. Seriously. So this is a question for the entire group, not just group one, the entire hive mind. What are some of the incentives for the public in mandating an anti-racism policy in the district? What are some of the incentives?
An anti-racist society.
The greatest incentive of all.
No marches, protesting, and threatening gestures because people are not being heard or addressed.
Yeah, I was gonna add to that something like less violence in
Mhm.
cities and towns, because usually that erupts because of racist acts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe re-election as well.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely makes it seem to their constituents that they're concerned about things such as that.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Thank you, everybody. These are all great answers. What about for the private sector?
Hit them where it hurts, that wallet. If you withdraw funding from some of these large businesses, you know, it speaks volumes.
Mhm.
And then, of course, we don't do a great job of supporting minority-owned businesses. So this is a chance to highlight and showcase that, you know, they have a stake in this city as well.
Right.
And of course, the Black Caucus is just a natural in NAACP. Those types of folks are just natural go-tos to help facilitate the process.
Dr. Williams, you make a great point. The minority dollar is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And they need our money.
Mm-hmm.
They need our money. And so, you know, being on the right side of history means that you keep a customer base.
Right.
Mhm. Mhm.
Also, too, I mean, at the same time, like, you know, which the dollars 3.9 trillion, which has probably gone up since then, but that's huge. But the other part too is like you got to think like global citizenship. People are coming out of institutions, post-secondary institutions with agency to choose where they want to work. I'm not going to go work somewhere that's inherently racist or has inherently racist practices, and I don't feel valued or heard or affirmed. I'm just not going to do that. And so that not only do you lose customers, but you may lose future employers. And anybody who's everybody, even right now, a lot of these larger companies are getting scrutinized for the lack of racial ethnic diversity that they have in leadership roles and in decision-making roles. And so me not seeing that could be a deterrent for me even wanting to go work there. Full stop.
Right.
So I guess the benefit of that, the flip side is that you could potentially attract more people to your business. Have that culture affirm.
Right.
Structure.
Yeah. Right. They could change their culture to a positive. Have a megaphone or bully pulpit to change. We could see the bigger changes coming from some of those bigger corporations, especially if we had people in there assisting these corporations and guiding them in the right way. I think that's where the biggest change would come. It seems like some of it is slowly happening right now.
Maybe it could also be a money saver for them. So if they were to join this, like they could get the same training for their employees at a discounted price for joining.
Yeah. And you know, I think it also plays a role in organizations' desire to move here, right? So before companies like Amazon decide to build something here, they do a very comprehensive study of the landscape. They did that in Tennessee and they still chose us, but notwithstanding, that is a practice that they do. They just came here anyway. But yeah, so that's
I mentioned the financial institutions because I was telling my group in my other career prior to moving to education, I was a salesperson who called on CEOs and business owners in the Metro Nashville area. And, you know, naturally, a lot of these big banks, First Tennessee, Regions, their decision makers look a lot like that board you showed us. And they're white men. And my experience was that they said with their lip service that they wanted to target all groups and bring and service all cultures and be diverse and be known as such. But a lot of times that was just a gimmick to just get more customers, but were they really genuine? So leveraging something like this with those people to put them on a hot seat to say, don't put African Americans in your ads if you're really not trying to cater to that group genuinely. So having the right players present that to those individuals, if they get on board, then other business owners that they rub elbows with will hopefully follow suit and support it as well. So, because they do what each other will do. They support what each other does. Kind of like when he was talking about how they already know when they go in to vote what they're going to vote for. They operate in the same way in the business world. If one company says that they're for this specific policy, then the other person will do it too.
Exactly.
I know we're probably going to move to the next group, but I just want to also highlight that one of our cohort members from last year did something very similar. She actually got implicit bias training instituted in her district. But she, we started as a power mapping, and she started, I don't know if she engaged as much with private, and I think largely, and I would say she was in Williamson County. So if you followed the news, Williamson County was in the news a lot over the last year, a lot because of some racial injustices and also racist things that happened in their district and the education space. So I think she had that working for her with the parallel of like everything else that was happening nationally. So there was already like a focus of like, we have to do something. Right. She was able to take what started out as a case study, and now this summer literally has it instituted as an option for professional development in her district. But I think the only flip side is she was pushing to have it mandated that everybody took the training. She hadn't gotten that approval yet. But the fact that it's actually an option and you can get professional development credits for it or in-service credits for it from inception to where it's at now, I think that's phenomenal. It just shows that it can be done and it can be led by someone who's on the ground serving.
And Reese, you were right. We are moving to a new group. Who would like to go next? Group 2 or group 3?
I can speak for group 2.
Okay.
Should I introduce our topic?
Yeah, so their prompt was, you want to require the state to set goals around recruiting teachers of color. These goals should hold districts accountable for their efforts. And so using the tool to show us that.
We thought it kind of spread over multiple sectors, but of course we thought of focusing a lot of our efforts on higher education institutions, those especially that offer some kind of teacher training programs. And so particularly for the public sector, we have kind of public colleges and universities, of course, local school board, superintendent, and executive principals as kind of education representatives to help them kind of strategize and understand how they can recruit educators of color effectively, making sure we are also working with the State Department of Education and then local government officials, so city council and mayor. And then, sorry, that last one is local school district recruitment and communications offices as well. How they are communicating and working on their recruitment efforts. Private sector, a lot of just kind of various corporations or companies or not knowing that teachers cover lots of different subject areas, and also this can still be helping to recruit people of color to teach at, for example, at medical schools, or teachers for CTE, career technical education courses, things of that nature. And so you're even as we are, even if it's not necessarily directly a teacher training program, these are still folks who can come from these sectors to, or specialize in these areas, to then teach our students. Banks and philanthropic organizations can help provide scholarships. Newspapers can help with also with publicizing. Let's see. Again, kind of referencing what's already been said before, but Black-owned businesses as well, supporting those kind of entrepreneurial efforts as well. But then finally, in the civic sector, focusing on, of course, parents, families, and students, particularly those of color, because they deserve to have teachers of color, of course, as do all students. Organizing with educators and teachers unions, so TEA, and then just for example, MNEA in Metro Nashville, and local union. Other kind of civic and advocacy organizations like Tennessee Equality Project or the Equity Alliance to just kind of mobilize and organize advocacy efforts. And then we just thought of some other kind of philanthropic or local community organizations that we listed there, like 100 Black Men, Black Women, churches and other places of worship, and other local youth organizations.
Thanks so much. So same kind of set of questions. What's in it for the private sector recruiting teachers of color? What's the incentive?
One of the things that, we see all the time is about how all students benefit from having teachers of color. So if the students are benefiting, even if they're not going into education, the students are benefiting, which means they're learning more, which means they can in turn be better workers when they enter the workforce. And so if we are educating them at the level that they need to be educated, these, even if they are not in education, they benefit just from having better workers at the minimum.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's what I was going to say. I think they benefit from the overall goal of good workers, good people coming from good communities and spreading that inside their companies also. And that's a way to even also recruit more people in those private sectors also.
Yeah, all of that. What's in it for the civic sector recruiting teachers of color?
I think for the families and parents, it's a relief. I think it's there's something that we're obligated to do that we probably hadn't been doing, to get those teachers that look like them and talk like us. It's just a sense of community. It's a sense of inclusion. It's a sense of everyone having a voice at the table. So I think part of that is to get everyone up on the same level and everyone with the same access.
I think you also have families. I think you have families becoming more involved. Most families don't, because they can't relate to the white teachers or can't relate to an all-white school.
Right.
They feel alienated. They don't get involved.
Right. Right.
Someone like them, genuinely interested in their kid, they tend to come out of that, hole.
Right.
And I think our schools then start to become a better makeup of the landscape of what our country is. Our country is minority led at this point. You need to make sure that our schools look the same.
Right.
Y'all make really valuable points about the impact of morale. We actually have one of your sessions will be someone talking to you about racial identity development and mental health. which we'll touch on some of these things. And I'm really excited about now hearing this conversation, right? Because it does matter. It does matter if you feel good and invested in your school site, in your teacher, in your community. And representation is a big part of that.
Right.
Last but not least, group 3. He's my spokesperson. Their prompt is, you want your state to pilot a universal pre-K program, providing high quality free early childhood education to all. Who is my spokesperson from group 3?
I will be our spokesperson.
Thank you.
So from the public sector, we thought that the Head Start program federally would be someone we'd need to get involved, or who'd be an interested party. The state commissioner, the State Board of Education, the Tennessee Department of Ed, the Board of Regents, and districts that are already implementing Head Start programs, and then MTSU and other public colleges. As far as the private sector, we thought about companies who already have an investment or an interest in education. So Procter & Gamble, Publix, Kroger, Walmart, Amazon, Nissan, Mars, and Oracle. For the civic sector, we thought about local schools with Head Start programs, community service organizations with an early childhood focus, churches, families, teachers unions, the Tennessee early childhood organizations that there are, the YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs, and any other already interested parties that we just didn't get to list because of time.
Yeah, thank you. What's the incentive for private? Why do these people care about universal pre-K?
They need workers that are educated and ready to go. And I think by starting these pre-K programs, you are setting up, children for success for the workforce later on.
To tag on to that, not only that, but as you mentioned earlier, that mothers take off because of children. And so now with their children being in someone else's care, they can return back to work and not have to stay at home. So they get their workers back as well.
Yes, women leave the workplace because they are unable to find high quality care or the high cost of care. It's cheaper to stay home. And we saw a lot of that during COVID-19. People realizing, I could just stay home. I could do this, even when it's incredibly difficult. And Emily, you made a great point. It's the answer we love to hate, or the answer I personally love to hate, is that they need good workers. They should do it because they care about children. But they do it because one day those children will grow up to work for them. That's really why they care, right? So when we're talking about incentive and we're getting to like the core motivation, it's that, which is really kind of sad. It's not kind of sad. It's really terribly sad to me to think about the number of interested parties that don't really care about children when they're making these really impactful decisions. So the last thing I want to do, stop share, start share. Darius, are you back from your phone call?
Yes.
Awesome. So great job, everybody, with practicing. And Darius is going to talk to us a little bit about the Educator Diversity Bill. I'm going to share my screen.
I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, but just background context. We've had a legislation on the books since around 1977, but more so updated. I'll speak from the context of 1993. There was a law on the books, TCA 4910302, which was updated in 2019, that required the State Board of Education to adopt a policy to promote educated diversity. Specifically, the three things that the policy should do is it would require every district in the state of Tennessee to have a goal in relation to the students of color in the district. Second, it would require every district to establish strategies for recruitment and retention to obtain that goal. And third, the Department of Education would develop a plan to monitor educated diversity collectively as those goals are being set. So in actuality, like, here's a district setting a goal. Here's what they said they were going to do to achieve it. Are they actually achieving that goal and being able to report the progress that they made year to year? There was no private engagement within this. Publicly, a lot of the work was between the State Department of Education and the State Department of Education, because they had to vote on the policy. But the Tennessee Department of Education was the ones that was supposed to develop the policy. And so we got involved. I got involved, and Tech got involved collectively early on in 2018 with the State Department. At the time, Sylvia Flowers, who was the Assistant Commissioner for Educator Effectiveness, she began to draft a policy for this particular educated diversity. She began a draft of the educated diversity policy. Unfortunately, when the administration changed, she was removed from her position and the work kind of failed. So we were starting work in 2018. We moved into 2019. Administration change, the work kind of fell flat a little bit. We had a new commissioner come in, and we had a new person in that position that Sylvia previously held come in. And so we were still holding on to it, but we were trying to pick the work back up to connect with the folks that were going to be leading it from the State Department level. Move forward. Civic engagement part for us was we kind of helped the State Department draft out that. So the draft that they made, we gave feedback on it and kind of began going through the language that the policy would actually have. We partnered with Education Trust of Tennessee, and we developed an Educated Diversity Advocacy Council. Actually, Jonathan was on that council with us. We did these mini sessions on Saturday where we kind of trained them around education policy and advocacy, and they got to get sessions with the State Board of Education, with folks who were working in the policy space to fully understand the bill. And so then they were able to give feedback on it too as well. Again, centering folks who are closest to the problems to be active in the solutions. And we then trained them up to have these independent meetings with their respective state board members. And so I know Jonathan held one with his state board member, and everybody on the council, based on where they were represented at, had conversations with their state board members intently on with the intention of, we want you to vote yes on this policy. And so them getting an opportunity to share their lived experience as an educator of color, why this policy was important, why they needed to vote yes. That way, when they were going into the meeting in February, they would vote yes. And so they met February the 5th, and they voted unanimously 9-0 yes for the policy to be adopted. And so in real time is kind of shows you, like, sometimes you're actually starting from ground zero. You're trying to get legislation passed. We already had the legislature. It just was literally like, here was a law telling the State Department to do something, and they hadn't done it. So in actuality, they were literally breaking the law for nearly 30 years until pressure required them to do something and then start making those shifts. And so this is a reenactment of what you kind of what you just explored and did and the practice that you did, but like it's in real life, like how you move from legislation to policy being enacted, and this and how that work looks from an advocacy standpoint. And so yeah, that's I don't know. I would actually probably lend Jonathan if he wants to share anything about his experience engaging with his state board member. But beyond that, that's kind of an overview of how the bill got adopted. Jonathan, any words you would share? Hate to put you on the spot.
No, you're fine. I mean, I think this is really cool. And when we were talking about power mapping, a lot of those people and stakeholders that we saw is, I mean, I wanted to point out, you guys saw the diversity, and I'll be blatant, Rob Eby is white. So a lot of that was interesting coming in, especially thinking, how would a white male perceive this policy being presented to him, and would he be on board and for it? But as you guys saw, it was a unanimous decision. And kind of when we all came back and shared out how we were having those conversations, they all were enthused and on board about this. Now it's just that next step of how we're going to enact that change at the more local level. So statewide diaries did a huge job prepping this up and then creating the policy and the council to help push this and make sure we have the networks. But it was just an interesting and a very good experience to have under your belt.
Appreciate you, Jonathan. Appreciate you engaging with that. I think that I'm trying to think if there's anything else to add there. I don't think that there is, but that's kind of where we landed. So
thanks so much, Diaries. And our final notes, Advocacy 101, get to know your people. You know, the state board, the group of older people that we saw earlier today, get to know those people, get to know who your specific state board rep is. If you're in Nashville, I believe it's Elisa Kim. If you're in Memphis, it is Daryl Cobbins.
So when you say get to know them, can we individually reach out with them through emails and say we are a fellow of the TEC? And
yeah, so you were actually asked as part of this fellowship to listen into a virtual meeting. There should be a resource page in your important documents that links to past recordings, but it also has a link to their website. You can tune in to meetings and write a quick reflection, but also all of their emails are available on the State Board of Ed website, and you can reach out to your elected official. I don't know if they will respond because they don't, getting a response from them to me is like shooting a fish in a barrel. But you are welcome to write them. I also encourage you to write your local legislator, your city council member, all of that. Don't assume others are speaking for you, right? So how is it that there's a something that they hadn't enforced in 30 years, right? You needed people to advocate for them to follow the law. Don't fall into the trap of believing that, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say while you're on that topic, I just dropped a link in. So like if you don't know who your State Board of Education member is, use that link to find out who your State Board of Education member is based on the district that you live in.
Right. Okay. Thanks.
And sorry, I'm going to message you back, Diaries. Okay. Don't fall into the trap of believing that they won't listen to you. I write my council member, Jenny Welsh, or who I like to call Jenny Defund the Police Welsh, and she responds, which I think is pretty miraculous. It's pretty cool, but she is kind of radical, which I like. Voice support as well as opposition. It's okay to be critical, and you're coming as an informed criticizer, right? So you're not coming in cold. You're coming in with lived experience and professional expertise. Do your research, gather input from other educators. You do that all the time. You talk to people, gather all of that information. It's knowledge, and don't let the bureaucracy get you down. Because it's very easy to do.
Yes.
You know, it's very easy to fall in the trap of feeling disempowered. But we're here to remind you that you do hold a lot of power.
Yes. That's what this does.
So I think that brings us to the end. That's all my slides for today. So typically how this works is our morning session is 10 to noon, then we break. Our afternoon session is 1 to 3, and then we have closing. Full disclosure, this is a safe space and we will all become very close with one another. The 4 people, I went down a list to come and do Ed Policy 101. None of them could make it, which is why you got stuck with me. So it would have been a full 2 hours with another person, but we finished very early because it was with me. So typically we get out around, sorry?
You did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you. I did go to school for Ed Policy. I have a master's in Ed Policy, but like talking about it all the time is not a thing that I do. but thank you, I appreciate that. So typically from 3 to 3:30, we would have like open discussion. We've kind of embedded that open discussion in the past 2 hours. So I think you're going to be getting a large chunk of time back from us. Tyrese, is that?
That feels right. Yeah, it feels right. Probably any last remarks that people have or questions that they may have or things like that. But outside of that, I think on our end, good.
Yeah. Start reading the Bettina Love. You're going to read the entire book and look for the discussion question form to come in a week and a half. And I will see all the book discussion. I'm so excited.
Dr. Henderson has her hand raised, I think. Yep.
Thank you, Doris. Thank you, Renee. Real quick, I don't want to sound like I'm always pubbing something, but this time I really need y'all next week on Thursday. I'm going to be interviewing the author of Cultivating Genius, 1,100 People. So virtually. So I want y'all to be in that audience of the 1,100 so I can have some familiar, friendly faces. I won't be able to see your faces, but it would be great to know that y'all are there. I'm going to put the link in the chat, but I'll also probably share it to you, Renee, maybe can go to the email. But yeah, I'm very, very, very nervous. Dr. Muhammad is awesome. If you've ever heard her or ever read the book, and I just want to be calm, cool, and collected. So right now I'm like full of jitters and nerves and all of that. And so it would be great for y'all to be in the audience. If you can.
Send us the email.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, we'll be there.
One last thing I would say on my end for homework, if y'all could look and find out who your state board rep is, and also in your school district on the board, who your respective board member is that represents the area that you live in. Those are two things that you should just have in your back pocket, just readily available to you. So who your state board rep is based on your district, but then within your district, there's a school board, and the school board is broken up oftentimes in the district by region. So certain parts of the community, find out who that school board region that represents you within the district that you work into. That could pay some dividends moving forward in this process, potentially based off of what you're advocating for, what your case study is, and what acts you might have down the road.
Okay.
I dropped a survey into the chat after every session as like an exit ticket. You will have a survey. So once you finish completing the survey, you are free to log off, sign off, go take a nap, do whatever. So it's in the chat. I'll drop it again in the chat. And I will be heading to Black Child Development Institute Nashville is having an event tonight. It's free at the local distro, 6 to 8:30. Food, I think wine. You can hear about Black Child Development Institute and the policy agenda that we're working on this year, and sign up for more information, any of that. And let me triple check. Yeah, the book discussion is on the 24th. It's a Saturday. And office hours are the 25th. That's what it is, Madison. Office hours on the 25th. It's the last Sunday of the month.
Okay.
All right. That's it, everybody.
All right. Nice seeing everyone.
Thanks for all your hard work today.
All right.
Bye, everyone. Have a good Saturday.
All right, bye-bye.
Benji, come here. Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording.